how to get up to $250,000 in funding for your real estate investment. That's the topic for today's episode. And without further ado, let's dive in. Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode. For those who are tuning in for the first time, this is your channel for real estate education. So today we're going to talk about funding. A couple of episodes ago, I had a special guest, Mike Banks, come into our channel to walk you all through the possibilities of getting access to $250,000 in funding and how easy that is. So after that episode, I received a ton of requests, a ton of questions, lots and lots of comments, which means you guys are extremely interested in the service. So I've asked Mike to join us again to answer all of the questions that you all have left me. I have compiled a list of all of them together, and Mike and I are going to meet today to make sure that all of your questions are answered. And without further ado, let's just welcome Mike. All right, so we have Mike Banks in the call, who has graciously agreed to join us once again to answer all of the questions, all of the messages that you guys have been sending me out. And hopefully with this, we'll get all of your answers clarified. And without further ado, let's just dive into what we have. So Mike, welcome today one more time. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
So let's just jump right into the questionnaire so that way we can maximize all the time we have. So one of the very first questions that I received was, what exactly does Fund and Grow does? I know we created an episode a few months back, but just as a reminder, as a refresher for everybody, can you please walk us through what is it that you guys have to offer?
Yeah, so in the least amount of words possible, what we do is we set up business credit accounts for clients, typically real estate investors, and we're a done-for-you service, so we do all of that legwork involved. You don't have to do any of it as a client, and that's really our specialty. We go after zero interest business credit cards that do not show up on your personal credit report. They're unsecured, and one of the biggest things is they don't show up on your personal report. So if you're carrying any debt, if you're doing a flip, if you just did a rehab, whatever, that debt won't count against your personal scores. You know, a lot of investors are using personal credit, so their scores come down. But with business credit, your scores won't come down as you're using it. We also set up an entity for people as well if you don't have one. If you're a startup, if you just did a flip or two or something like that, we'll set up an entity for you, and it's included in what we do. So that pretty much covers what we do without getting into all the details. But you know, we have a membership. It's 12 months. We do 3 rounds of funding. We get people up to and sometimes over $250,000 in the first 2 weeks of working with us. People can get up to $150,000 per person, and they can bring in a spouse or a business partner with them and double the amount that they get. So there's potential to get quite a bit of funding within the first 2 to 3 weeks of working with us, and then we repeat that process 3 times over the 12-month membership.
So you briefly talked about what Fund and Grow has to offer. So and you share with everyone at a high level what's it like to be a part of Fund and Grow. But I know I have received a lot of comments of people asking me, what exactly can they really expect from the moment that, let's say, they fill up the form online, and then what happens afterwards? Do they have to call you? Do you call them? And then how do you assess their current situation, and what happens after the fact until the point that they get all that funding? Can you walk us through the entire experience and share what it's like?
Yeah. So if somebody goes to the link in the description, they're just going to be prompted with a simple opt-in form, name, phone number, email, and then it'll also ask like what their credit score range is. And then once they submit that, they'll be able to see a video and get access to the webinar on the back end, and also somebody from our team who is like an expert with business credit, personal credit, how to qualify for business credit. Somebody will call them, ask them a few questions, get an idea of where they're at, and then be able to give them a pre-qualification amount that they can receive. And also, they'll get a full in-depth consultation. They'll get a plan of action. You know, let's say they have great credit, 750 scores, got a couple credit cards with, you know, 5,000, 10,000 or so limits on them. They're not maxed out, and they don't have any negatives. So if they have pretty good credit overall, that's going to be, you know, straight to applications. We could have funding for them in the first 2 to 3 weeks. But let's say they have a bankruptcy or they have a late payment or some negative items on their report, then the plan of action for that person would likely be, we need to repair that credit. We need to clean it up and get those things removed as quickly as possible so that we can get you ready for funding so that you actually qualify. So they have bad credit, some negatives, then we'll likely be sending them to credit repair first. But a lot of our clients sign up with us and then we get them a discount on credit repair. Now that's one of the options. It could go straight to applications. You could go to credit repair. And then let's say some people have maxed out credit cards right now because they're using them for their business. So in that case, we would say, hey, we really would like you to pay these down close to 45% of the debt to total credit ratio on credit cards we're talking about. If they need pay downs, that would be the other route that they would go. So if they need pay downs, we would tell them, hey, you need to pay down this much. Or we have ways that we can get short-term installment loans. We have one company we work with who specifically does pay down loans for this exact scenario. So they'll wire money over to a client, and then the client will pay down their credit cards, and then they qualify for business credit. Then we apply for business credit for them. Once they've got that in their hands, then they can pay down the pay down loan. So that's one of the, there's usually 3 different routes that somebody can go. But yeah, as far as going to the link, you just fill out the link, and then we call you. And then if you decide to become a client, you'll either go right to funding, right to applications, credit repair, or a pay down. And that could be pay down from your pocket or a pay down from the pay down loan that we can get for you.
Thanks a lot, Mike. That was extremely helpful. Thank you for walking us through the entire experience. Now, another question that I get all the time from our viewers is, what is it that I need to do once I become a client? Can you walk them through that as well?
Yeah, definitely. So once you become a client, it's really easy. We're a done-for-you service, so you're not going to be required to do any of the work. When it comes to submitting the applications, when it comes to following up, making sure you're approved at the maximum amount, we do all of that. And so we're, constantly on the phone with the decision maker. We have, we're doing like 15 million a month in credit that we originate every month. So it's a lot easier for us to get answers and to get approvals than it is for the average person. And that's why so many people want to work with us. So yeah, we're a done-for-you service. The only thing you're required to do is get that welcome email after you become a client, and then just fill out the info, sign the simple documents that are there, giving us authorization to do this, and then we'll process your file, review your credit, get back to you as soon as possible, typically within 2 to 3 business days, and we'll let you know, here's what you qualify for, give you like a $10,000 range or window, like 60 to 70,000, and that's what you qualify in your first round, but there's 3 rounds over the 12 months. So we let you know all of that. We let you know what the funding plan of action is. Let's say if you need to make a pay down, we'll let you know that right then and there too. So within the first few days, you're going to have a very clear picture and understanding of what's to come and what you're going to qualify for and what your next steps are. So that's all handled right away as soon as you become a client. So let's say you go to the link in the description, you choose your credit score, you opt in, you watch the video, and then somebody calls you, and then you decide to move forward and become a client. You'll get the welcome email once we set up your account, and then you'll be able to fill that info out, and then we'll begin processing your file and get you on the apps list, the applications list, as soon as possible. And within the first 2 to 3 weeks, you can already have the credit in your hands, assuming you qualify right then and there. But a lot of people, a lot of people do qualify, ideally 730 scores and up. But let's say you need a small pay down or something, we'll let you know right then. And like I mentioned before, we have a solution. It's a pay down loan, basically, which is helping a lot of our clients who, let's say they don't want to lay out all the money to pay down their cards. We can, a lot of times, not all the time, get a pay down loan and then go and get the business credit and then pay the pay down loan off with the business credit at 0 interest.
Perfect. Thank you.
Oh, and one other thing. If we need to, we'll set up an entity for you as well in that beginning phase. So there's a lot of different things happening. We're also going to review your credit report, and we're going to make sure all the inaccurate things are fixed and reporting accurately. If there's any addresses on there that aren't supposed to be there, if there's any names misspelled. Another example is if you have let's say like a no limit credit card or one of those like, flexible spending credit cards, that sometimes what happens with those, they show a 0 in the actual credit report. So in the limit field, it'll show a 0, but if you have a balance on that card, it'll show a $5,000, $10,000 balance. And that means you're technically, as far as the data is reporting, over the limit. Even though the limit's a no limit card, a lot of times they show a 0. So we can get that corrected because that'll throw your debt to credit ratio out of whack, and it'll make it look like you're overextended when you're not.
Okay.
And there's a couple other things that we can catch just from reviewing your credit without actually doing credit repair. One other thing that I'll say real quick is the seasoning on the account. So sometimes you can have an account open, let's say for 10 years. That's how that date opened was 10 years ago on the credit report. But when you look in the months reviewed field, it's only showing 5 months reviewed. So that also can throw things out of whack a little bit and make it appear as if it's a new account. Because that month's reviewed field is where they're coming up with the amount of seasoning you have. And if it's only showing 5 months of seasoning, but you've had the account open for 10 years, obviously that's not accurate. So there's just tons of things like this that our team catches and we correct it. And that right there will help improve your scores without even doing anything as far as like repair or anything like that. So correcting the inaccurate things in the first few days of working with us, that's what we're looking at doing. We're looking at improving your credit and then also setting up the entity and then getting you move forward to applications. We want everybody to be as lendable as possible. And that's a big part of what we do in that first phase.
And it looks like working with you guys, it's definitely highly educational. Just the tips that you just shared right now is definitely very helpful. I mean, I don't know some of it, so I'm actually glad we're having this call because I definitely learned something new today. So thank you for sharing.
I actually just interviewed a client and he was explaining everything in the program as if he was like a salesperson. And I was just doing a client interview with him, but he went through the program. He was with us for like a year and a half. He got like $290,000 between him and his partner. Yeah, and he actually remodeled 8 properties using the funding that we got. He did a bunch of other stuff with it, pays property taxes, all kinds of stuff.
Perfect, that's awesome.
Yeah, he was very well versed on what we do, and he was able to explain it as if he was part of the company. But that's just what it is. You become really educated working with our team, even though you don't have to do the work. We're holding your hand through it. You're on the same page as us the whole way through it, so you do learn a lot.
Perfect. No, thank you. I think it's definitely value add. Now, let me just go back towards the beginning. You mentioned something about getting access to the credit cards that Fund and Grow helps the customers get, that these type of credit cards, they are kept separate from their personal credit. Now, I have subscribers from all kinds of level of in terms of financial literacy in the channel, and I will like for you to kind of like walk them through the benefit as to why is it so important to keep those two separate, and how does it help them in terms of investments.
Okay, so when I spend a lot on my personal cards, my credit score fluctuates. And, if I pay them off, my score goes back up over 800. If I start carrying a few thousand, even $5,000 even on my credit cards, my scores go down. And that's with personal credit. But with business credit, that won't happen because the business credit we get doesn't show up on your personal credit report. So on your personal report, you got all these personal cards, right? You got a personal Citi, personal Chase, whatever you got. Those show up when you pull your credit and when you review it. And when a mortgage lender, an auto lender, when they review your credit, they see all those personal cards. And that debt to credit ratio, the debt to income counts against you on your personal. Right. But with business credit, it doesn't show up on your personal credit report. So you might have 5 or however many business cards that you're carrying $50,000 on, whatever. That doesn't show up on your personal report. So your personal is going to stay nice and high with 800s. You can go and get any mortgage. You can refinance your rental property that you bought cash or you bought with the business credit line. You can refinance it easily and get a cash out refi and do that multiple times because your personal scores are going to look great. You're going to have low debt on your personal cards, ideally, because you're going to be using your business credit. So and also you can get access to larger limits with business credit, but it's not easy to do. Usually when you apply, they start you out with really small amounts, but through our process, we're doing, like I said before, like 15 million every month that we originate every single month for our clients. So it's a lot easier for us to, kind of push you to the front of the line and make sure that you get the largest limit possible on that first application. Even though it might be your first business credit card, a lot of times I have clients come to me with 750 scores and they say when they try to do it on their own, the bank was only willing to give them 5,000, or they denied me because I didn't have any business credit. I hear that one a lot. But, that's the same. We hear that too when we apply, but we don't just take the decision. We're able to get you approved and increase those cards to the maximum amount possible through, our process and through the relationships that we've got. We've been, in this business now for 12 years now. And so we've been, funneling clients through the banks like crazy. So it's a lot easier for us to just call right in and speak with the person that makes that decision than it is for the average person.
Thank you, Mike. This is really helpful. The reason why I asked this question is because I had a subscriber who have left a comment in one of our videos, and this person was asking if it was possible to do the exact same thing, but in their personal credit. So I was a little confused, but then I thought, well, maybe this person doesn't really know the potential of having access to business credit. And then I think part of it at the same time has to do with the fact that sometimes people could feel a little overwhelmed when they hear the word business, right? They're thinking, well, I don't know anything about business. I'm trying to get started in a business, but I don't have an LLC. I don't have all of these fancy legal entities that I don't know much about or set up. So maybe it's just easier if I do it under my personal. But having heard everything you shared with us, you guys are a done for you service and you take care of everything there is to take care of. But I know ultimately it comes down to the questions of, all right, so what is it that I need to do? What can you do for me? And in terms of having access to that business credit, right? Can you walk them through the whole process of how you help them set up their business entity for those who don't have any to, be able to take advantage of this great and awesome service?
Yeah. And I can see why people would think it's easier to just go the personal credit route, because it definitely is. It's easier to get approved. It's a much easier process. You don't have to have an entity set up to go the personal credit route. And the only problem is it shows up on your personal report. So if it's for business use, if it's for real estate, you should really be looking into business credit. And it's, yes, we do set up the entity for you. And we actually have an attorney firm that we work with who will set up a free LLC for our clients. And we're also able to keep it real simple and just set up a tax ID and go that route as well. So if you're thinking about doing this on your own, that's something to consider. You could do the LLC route, or you can just set up a tax ID right on the IRS website. That's another way that you can go about it. And now you got your tax ID, and now you can apply for business credit. But, even just me saying that sounds really easy, but people are like, wait, how do I do that? Or, what part of this website? So that's why a lot of people are like, all right, you know what? I want the most amount of funding I can get. I don't want to, play the guessing game. So let me just go to the link and see what these guys can offer, and then I'll go from there. So it's worth looking into it just to at least talk to our team, learn some stuff, pick their brains. And then from there, you can make your decision, of course, on what you want to do. But yeah, we set up the entity for you. It's all included in what we do. There's no upcharge for this and upcharge for that. So yeah, the entity's part of it, and we pretty much take care of everything for you. Once you get started with us, you fill out the info, and we then process your file and move you forward. And then before you know it, you've got a ton of credit. And like that guy I was telling you about, I interviewed earlier, he was like, look, I can't tell you how grateful I really am for what you guys have done for us. It's not just something like to look over. It's not like, oh yeah, they just got me some credit. Like, we got this guy a lot of credit. And even for the people who are only getting like 50,000 in that range, these people are really grateful because they didn't know about this type of funding. They didn't know there was zero interest rates available for an average of 12 months. A lot of people think they got to go and spend like 30% interest or 20%, or they think they got to get an investor involved who's going to take half the stake of their company, like a Shark Tank type of investor. So right. This really is like an eye-opening thing for a lot of people, and it can be really helpful. And the cool thing is we do all the work for you. So.
Perfect. Thank you. And in your answer just now, you actually touch upon a lot of points, a lot of the questions that a lot of the subscribers had. One of them was about how long the interest rates will remain at 0% in terms of the credit cards. And at the same time, another question that they typically ask if whether this services or whether the funding that they get through your service, it's only for real estate, or can they actually use it for something else? like other type of businesses, or are they confined to just real estate specifically? It's a
No,
very
they can do anything they want with it. We've got lawyers, doctors, chiropractors, also a doctor. We've got truck drivers. We've got, Amazon, e-com stores, internet marketers. We have all different types of affiliate relationships with people who are like educating and coaching people on all these different topics, all these different businesses. So, but real estate tends to be the most common for us. So that tends to be our most common client. It just seems like real estate investors, flippers, people that are trying to buy and hold rental properties, those people need more money, more ongoing. And like the others, businesses I mentioned, might just be like more of a one-time expense. An Amazon store, they're going to need to buy inventory regularly. Right. So they're ongoing, going to need funding. Internet marketers spending money regularly on marketing. And that's a great one right there, like an Amazon or internet marketer. Those people are spending money, and a lot of times they're not using credit with rewards points. Like that right there saves people thousands of dollars every quarter. When you're spending a lot of money on your cards and you're getting those rewards points back, if you're doing a flip, if you're spending a lot of money on renovations, buying a bunch of inventory, you're accumulating and racking up a ton of rewards points. And that right there is like thousands of dollars in cash back, thousands of dollars in travel that you're getting. And it's not to be overlooked. It's a legit thing. Like people are they're basically paying for the service with those rewards points. It kind of pays for itself, so to speak,
You're making it up. You can use, like you said, pretty much all those points are basically anything. So on the real estate side, I was just stacking them up, and as I got enough points, I would use them to travel to other states and just check out the areas whenever I needed to travel. And at the same time, now we're actually planning to travel again but this time for a much longer period of time. And we were sort of like trying to put together a little bit of a plan to see, okay, if we travel into this area, then we want to hop onto another state and perhaps, start hopping from one country to another. Then we had plenty of points because of the fact that we shifted our spending process or a way of spending money. So rather than you using your fundings or any savings that you had, you shift that to the use of a credit card. And it's twofold. You accumulate points that you can use for cash back, like you mentioned, for example, to cover, the membership at Fund and Grow, or just use that to do so many other things. And I know some of the cards that you get everyone approved of, some of them, they have additional perks, right? Like if you spend, I don't know, a certain amount of money, or for every dollar that you spend on advertising, and you get 5 times the points as opposed to like 1 or so. So it's a great way to create money, quote unquote, by spending money at the same time.
Yeah, it's reminded me of one of another interviews that I did with a client who bought 6 deals as a cash buyer. And every time he did that, he was sending a wire transfer from the credit line to the title company. And that right there costs 2.5% to charge the card and send the wire to the title company. So every time he would spend that 2.5%, he was still getting that money back through the rewards, because let's say the property was $60,000.
Right.
He had to pay 2.5% of the $60,000 in order to be able to send that wire. So he would pay plastic.com 2.5% of $60,000. They would charge the card, but he's getting a bunch of rewards points from that big charge, right? So even though that cost him, $1,500 to send it, he gets it right back in the rewards points. And he even said he got a couple thousand each time he did it. So it was like it paid for itself. So.
Great. Now, to follow up on what you just mentioned, so back to the real estate subject, right? So you talked about the use of credit cards for people who do wire transfer. I'm assuming you're talking about cash purchases, right? You can easily find a property in a blue-collar neighborhood for about $60,000. You buy it, perhaps you rehab it, and then you do a cash-out refi. But what about for those who are a little bit more aggressive and they're looking to buy properties that are more expensive? Can you actually share to see if it's possible for them to use part of that money as the down payment and still have the ability to finance the rest, like some of us will normally do? I don't mean to put you in the spot. I don't know if that's common, but I figure I'll ask because a lot of people have been.
It does come up. And I've had clients who've sent in reviews, and I know there's one of those reviews is even on our webinar. The guy talked about how he used $45,000 towards a down payment, and there's ways to do that. I know a lot of people have, they have their own strategies. The way that we talk about a lot is using Plastic, which is, and also Melio.
Right.
Those are two companies that are basically set up to send a wire or send a check from your credit line to wherever you want to send it to. Now, as far as getting a finance deal done with a down payment in your bank account, a lot of times the bank is going to want to know, how long have you had that money? Where did it come from? All that good stuff. So that's more up to the client to determine how they're going to go about doing that. The resource that we have in place is Plastic and Melio. There's ways that you can send money to any business, to any individual that's a business. You can't send it to yourself. You can't just, go to Plastic and send it directly to your bank account.
Right.
Unfortunately, that's like a restricted use, because that's basically like, completely, obviously you're just doing a cash advance in a sense.
Right.
So they don't want you to do that, but there's ways that you can send it to another business. And then we've even had some clients tell us that, that they've used their own accounts to do it. So I don't know exactly, how they went about it, that they had a merchant account and they, sent it, through their merchant account and got the cash that way. But yeah, that's typically, the way that works. A lot of clients are getting it done. But as far as we know, the best ways to do it are with Plastic and Melio, and that allows you to just send the money to the title company. So let's say you're doing an owner finance deal, right? And there's no bank involved. There's no Bank of America trying to give you a mortgage. You're doing an owner finance deal. I had a client tell me that they were able to complete that easily, send the down payment through, and then boom, the deal is pretty much done at that point.
Perfect.
It's, the owner, in that case, the owner or the seller is the bank, and that's why it's called owner finance, obviously. But when it comes to the more traditional mortgages and going that route, it does get a little trickier because the bank is going to want to see the money in your account and then say, let's say it just got there last week, they're going to want, where did this come from? I'm sure everyone who's applied for a mortgage before knows how that goes. It's not like, we can't just take the credit card and, say, here's my down payment.
Which, believe it or not, a lot of people have asked me that question. Some of them have actually gone straight to the bank with their credit card at 0% and say, I want to buy this property, just take the money out of this car. And every time I read that comment, I say, no, that's not the way. Like, the bank will never let you do something like that. You have to, work magic around it and make it happen. But the bank would never let you just walk in and say, here's my money, just take it, and now just give me.
Because the whole idea of a down payment is it's like a cash down payment so that they know they got that, right? With a credit card, you can charge back.
Yeah.
They don't really know what's going to happen with the credit card, but yeah, so that's why you got to figure out how to get the money. If you're going to go that route, you got to figure out how to get the money into your bank account. So a lot of people are doing these different creative ways of doing that. Like I said, through Plastic, you can send it to another business. You can use, if you've got other ways of doing it. I did have a client tell me something about using his merchant account. He did that himself. So there's ways to do it. It's just, that part is a little tricky subject there. So that's really up to the client to figure out how they're going to go about doing that. But at the same time, there are ways to do it, and that shouldn't really matter though, because this isn't only for a down payment. This isn't only for buying a property outright. This isn't only for renovations. It's not only for paying your taxes. It's not only for marketing. It's for a lot of things. Like, you can use this for whatever you want. So don't get hung up on one thing or the other, because there's always going to be another way you could have used it. And if you don't have it, you'll be kicking yourself, because one day you're going to end up needing the money and be like, oh man, I could have covered this roof. Yeah. I could have did this whole $30,000 rehab with this credit card and got rewards points and $2,000, $3,000 back in cash back or something like that. So don't get hung up. Like, if you need the money for a down payment, there's tons of ways to go about doing it. And I wouldn't let that be a big sticking point. Just keep in mind all the different ways that you can use the funding.
Right, right. And now on the subject of people getting hung up on certain things, right? So another very common question that I've gotten from everybody is, okay, well, I know that I have these cars for 0%, and but then they're only for a short period of time, 12 months, 6 months, 9, depending on your credit, depending on the state. What would happen after the promotional APR it's over? I mean, I can certainly answer that question, but I figure you probably have heard that question a lot from people who
Oh,
call
yeah.
in. And so what would you say to them as well?
Okay, so I get that question a lot. That's like one of the most commonly asked questions.
Hmm.
And so the rates usually they start at about 12% usually after that zero interest rate expires. We're seeing
Okay.
them usually between 12 to 16%. Depends on
All
your
right.
credit, your history, all that good stuff, just like any other card that you've got. You know, some people like me, I've got one card, I think it's at 9% that I've had for
Oh,
years,
that's awesome.
but they don't have, like right now, the bottom is like 12% on any card. So that's
And
pretty
that's
much where
considered
it's
a good
at.
percentage.
But you don't have to keep that card and that interest rate forever. Ideally, you'll keep your cards open for as long as possible. But when it comes to the business credit cards, you can for one go back and apply and get the same card again. If you let's say if you were to close it. For two, you can get more credit. So we do 3 rounds of funding in our membership. So we're going to get you more credit, and you're going to get more zero interest, right? So at the end of the 12 months, you'll get another round of zero interest for an average of 12 months each offer. And then you've got these older accounts that are starting to get interest incurred on them. So what you can do is you can basically move the balance onto the new card, and now you have zero
Right.
interest for another 12 months. Or
Right.
in some cases, if we like for a couple banks have two different business cards, so we'll get you the first business card, and then at the end we'll get you the other business card, and then we can merge those two together. And that's if
Perfect.
it's a Bank of America or one of the banks that has two cards. That way you'll get the full limit from both cards, but you'll have the zero interest from the new card. So then
Hmm.
you'll be able to keep that balance zero interest longer. And then what's cool is we can also work with you for a second year, sometimes even 3 or 4 years. We'll work with the client. So people will sign back up with us. So that's
Perfect.
another option. That's another possibility. But the main idea is we get you 3 rounds of funding, and we help you extend that amount of time you have it at zero interest. So keep that in mind. Obviously, you want to make a wise decision when you're doing any investment, whatever it's going to be. You're not going to
Right.
replace a 30-year mortgage with these business credit cards, right? But
Right.
you can get a lot done in that 12 months. Some people are doing multiple flips. And what's cool is you don't have to go and pay a hard money lender $10,000 every time you want to do another flip. If you can do
Right.
multiple flips in that 12 months, you can do them for way less than you'd be paying for a hard money lender. Or let's say you're just paying for the rehab. Let's say you use a hard money lender to cover the cost of the property, but you're gonna cover the rehab. You know how much easier it is to get the hard money lender to approve the deal? It's a lot easier when you have that extra money to bring to the table to help with the deal. So
Correct.
yeah, I think I answered your question.
So that's awesome, Mike. Thanks a lot for sharing. So now back to the question of legal entities, right? I know you mentioned that you helped out the customers who don't really have access, or maybe they are brand new to this whole investing experience. But what about those investors who are actually more seasoned and they already have the legal entity set up? So can they leverage their own entity, or do they have to go through the whole, hey, let me just put one new legal entity together and take it from there?
Yeah, it really depends. We can use the existing entity most of the time. So that's, if they've already got a business and they've got things going already, we can probably just use their existing entity. But sometimes there's a benefit to creating a new one. And, we go over that with them in the very beginning phase on the consultation. We'll let them know, look,
Okay.
you got a brand new LLC. We could use that, or we can use this one, which is going to be a little bit more lendable. So that's something that's just a judgment call. But if they've already got one, they've been doing business for years, we'll probably use that one.
Okay. All right. So if it's mostly on a case by case, as you will say, depending on how good their business is, right?
Yeah, that's just a judgment call really. But if they've already got an
Okay.
existing business and it's they've been doing business for years, especially if they've got financials and they've got good income with that business, and there's no reason we wouldn't use that. So.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Now, the next question, right? I actually remember reading that comment from someone else. Yes, the membership is great. And I think at some point they went into the website and looked you guys up. And this person noticed that there are other options for those who have a really good credit score, a good FICO score. Can you walk them through what is the second option aside for the membership?
Okay, yeah. The other option is one that isn't used very often because it's more costly. So it's a 9% of the total credit that they get. They don't have to put any money down up front, but they're going to pay 9% of the total amount of credit that we get for them. So when we present the two offers to them, especially with the discount on the membership and the fact that they get 3 rounds of funding up to $250,000 compared to pay 9% of the total credit received. I mean, that's a huge, I had a client, I mean, believe it or not, we had a client that paid happily $15,000 with the 9% back end fee. And that, in my opinion, is not really good for the customer. I don't want to push people into that 9% program. That's only there for a very small percentage of people who will not pay up front, because even if they've got the money in the bank, they've been burned, they've been ripped off, they don't trust anyone. They are happy to pay, $5,000, $10,000, $15,000. But like I said, that's a fraction of the business we do. Most people, when we present those two offers to them, they can see that we have their best interest in mind. The 12-month membership comes with way more service, way more consulting, way more funding. They get 3 rounds, and it costs them, one fixed price. So it's capped. There's no back end fee every time we get them more credit. So the other option, like you brought up, is a 9% performance based option, and they don't have to put any money down up front, but they do have to qualify right then and there in order to be able to get into that program. So they got to have at least a 730. They got to have a few credit cards open. Their debt to credit ratios have to be really low. They can't have a bunch of new accounts. They can't have any derogatory negative accounts. So they got to be in great shape so we can just basically apply for them right then and there. And then they would pay 9% after we got the credit established for them.
Right. So it sounds like it's a bit more restrictive, and at the same time, it wouldn't make much more sense financially. But I guess for some people, because you said they've been burned so many times that perhaps this is the way they chose to go.
Yeah, there's that person. Sorry,
yeah?
There's that person, but then there's also the person who's
making millions of dollars, and they want to reduce their taxable income or something.
Yeah, they don't have the money at all. They might barely have good enough credit, but they don't have the money in the bank, and they can't use the money on their credit card because they've only got a small amount available, or a small amount before they're overutilized. So it's a real small percentage of people that end up going that route. But it's still an option for people, and it's good that we brought it up so people know that there is a way to do this without paying up front. The only problem is it's a little bit more costly, and it's a lot more costly, honestly. I mean, if 9% of, I think it's like 50,000 is $4,500, right? So if you only got 50,000, you'd have to pay 4,500, but with the membership, you're paying less than 4,500, and you're going to get way more than 50,000 because it's 3 rounds of funding. So we always tell people that not to force them to pay up front, but really, it's a way better deal. Like, I feel bad about charging someone that ridiculous amount of money. So I really always, I don't care how much money we could make off of it. I would much rather see them get a better value out of it and get multiple rounds of funding and not pay an arm and a leg. You know what I mean? It's just not right. We've got hundreds of clients every month paying the membership fee and getting 3 rounds of funding. And then to see, a couple people doing the 9% option and paying way more, it's like, ouch, you know.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, bottom line, numbers talk, right? You get to compare, okay, do I rather pay the 9% here? And I remember when I first reached out to you guys a couple of years ago, that was literally the conversation I had over the phone, right? I said, well, I have this much credit, and like, why should I pay you guys a membership up front? And I remember I was walked through, okay, well, so assuming you get this much in the first round, this much in the second round, and we're charging you this much, is it something that you will rather do, or would you rather just take care of the membership one time and then just go through the 3 rounds of funding? And to me, that was a no-brainer. But I do understand that everyone is in a different financial situation. So the reason why I brought it up is just to let everyone know, hey, if you don't have the membership fee up front, this is definitely another option that you can take. But there are options, right? And same thing, like you mentioned, if your credit is not in the greatest shape, there are things that they can do on their end as potential customers to get that credit lendable or credit ready, whatever the term is, to help them get the most out of this rounds of funding.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to mention, usually if somebody can qualify for the performance-based program, that means they have to have really good credit. That means they can't be maxed out. They got to be about 35% of the debt that they got to their credit. So if they've got that much credit available, then they can usually do a payment on the membership. So it really just depends on the person and what they want. Because if you qualify for performance-based, that means you can make a payment on the membership. So it's really just a choice at that point. What do I want? Do I just want like 30 or 40,000 and that's all I need? Maybe I'll go with the 9% option then, because it's going to cost about the same. But if I'm going to get more than 30 or 40,000, you better believe I'm not doing the 9%, because I can get a better deal. So if you got the credit, even if you don't have the money, that's my point. Even if you don't have the money based on your financial situation, if you got the credit that qualifies you for that, you should still consider your options, because you can get 30 or 40,000, 9%, and now you've paid about the same that our membership costs. But our membership, you can do 3 payments of $1,300, and it's really just a choice on what you prefer, I guess.
Yes, definitely. I agree with you, Mike. The membership is definitely a much better deal. But again, for those who want to take the other route, now there's that option right there. And while I still have you here, I actually want to take you a few steps back into legal entities. So I realized I just simply skipped the question. I completely forgot about it. Now, you helped out people to, get access to the creation of a legal entity, but another question that I've actually received in the comments section is, okay, so let's assume that Fund and Grow comes in and helps me set it up. What happens after the fact, right? Once I get all the funding that I want, a year has gone by, who's responsible for that legal entity? Is it something that gets automatically closed out, or is it something that let's say, for example, as a customer, will have to come in and continue with the maintenance of it? Or is there an option C? What happens to it?
Okay, so with the entity, if it's an LLC, that means the attorney that we work with set it up. So the filing fee, it's just a state filing fee or whatever that you'd have to pay, or the registered agent, I believe is how they put it.
Both. Mm-hmm.
Both. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, so that would most likely be handed over to you. But I'm not sure. I'm not exactly sure if the attorney is still communicating, because I personally did the free LLC program for my real estate business, and they set it up for me. But they've reached out to me to let me know, hey, we got to pay this thing. It's coming up. So I'm assuming that that's exactly how it would work.
Yeah, that's typically how it goes. The reason why I asked this question is because it has come up a few times. So I figured while I still have you here, I might as well just ask that question. But you're right. You do have the entity set up, right? And then for the most part, you don't have to worry about it. And then I will say about a month or two, no, not even a month or two, depending on the attorney that helps you set it up, I will say between 3 to 4 months prior it's coming up to expiration, you'll get a letter in the mail or an email depending on how you guys communicate. But for the most part, you get multiple reminders beforehand, so that way you can prepare and set the funding aside, whether it's coming from Fund and Grow or any other credit card that you have. But the point is they remind you beforehand, so that way it doesn't come as a surprise and now you're trying to figure out, okay, do I want to maintain this LLC? Do I want to close it out? And so that's going to be totally at everyone's discretion. I have them open because I have my real estate properties in there, and it sounds like you do as well. You take care of it because you invest in real estate as well.
Yep.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right, awesome. So thank you for sharing. And as the last question, as a wrap up, Ray, more than a recap, I want you to share what's the value add that Fund and Grow has to provide to our audience right here, because I can see a lot of naysayers going about, hey, I can do this by myself, I can do this alone, and you just certainly share a lot of tips with me that it will give me even more reason to do this alone. But there's a reason why you guys have a lot of customers. There's a reason why I reach out to you guys, because I trusted you, right? So what's the main value add that you can help other people get that they wouldn't be able to get by themselves?
Yeah, so we did talk about it a little bit, and it's not to say that someone can't go out and get a credit card on their own, because obviously anyone can do that. But what we do is definitely unique. We're on the Inc. 5000 list going on 5 years in a row. We've got over 2,000 positive reviews. We got like a 4.9 star rating because we consistently get like substantial amounts for people that they aren't really going to get on their own. When you apply on your own, and we know because we apply 1,500 times every single month, so we know what happens when people apply and what happens in the beginning phase of that application. And then we see what happens as it progresses, as we do our process, which we call the negotiations process. And that's a time-consuming process. And the average person is going to be sitting on hold before they even get to speak with anybody about it. And they're not even going to be sure if they're going to get the approval. But when we submit an application, we know what that person qualifies for. We know what the bank can approve. We know what the underwriter can approve them for. So when we go in, you better believe we've got another level of confidence when we go and we say, look, this is what we need. Not 5,000, not a denial on a client with a 750 just because they don't have any business credit history. That's why we're applying. We're trying to get them business credit. Of course, they don't have any history yet. We're applying for their first cards right now. So sometimes the responses you get are like, what? Like, you're not going to give me any business credit because I don't have any yet? It's like, wait. I have a 750 score, but we know we've submit 1,500 clients a month. We know who qualifies. And we know sometimes the bank just says things to kind of just push you away, like, we don't, but really it's a lot of times it's just a computer algorithm. It's a systematic approval. It's all done through the computer. That's why the bank loves lending so much through business credit, because it's the easiest for them. It's the least labor intensive, and it costs them the least amount of money. And I've read articles about this. I've done videos about it compared to like the old school line of credit or a traditional business loan. There's so many different things that they've got to go through. There's different things they've got to review, different documents that they need, all this stuff. But with business credit, it's unsecured, it's stated income, so they don't need to review all your financials. So it's a lot easier, but they do still kind of push back a little bit. Even if you have good credit, it's just a matter of being able to get on the phone with the decision maker, knowing what to say, knowing who to speak to, and pushing for the right amounts. Like if somebody has a $20,000 card right now on their personal account, on their personal credit, we know what we can get them on business credit. But when they apply on their own, you get that letter in the mail, or you get that, on that, after you submit the application on the next page, it says, sorry, but we are not able to approve you at this time because you don't have any business credit history. If I hear that and I don't know any better, I'm like, damn, well, I guess I'm shit out of luck. I can't get the business credit I wanted because I don't have any history. Now what do? I don't know. But with us, we know. So that's why a lot of people work with us, because we're able to get consistent amounts, consistent, substantial amounts, and do it time and time again, even though in that initial auto approval column, we see a lot of zeros when we apply, and when the average person applies, it just happens that way. They want you to kind of fight for it in a sense. And that's what we found. So, we've got a whole system in place. We've got a team of 40 people here. We just bought a new office building. And so that team of 40 people we have they're the ones that are in the trenches every day, making sure that they get you approved at the largest amount. And it's not just because they're paid to do it. They make money based on the amount they get you approved for. So you better believe they're going to push. They're going to make sure each application is reviewed by a human being, and they're going to make sure that you get the maximum amount possible, because they're getting a commission based on that. And they are also incentivized to get a review from you. So if they do a good job on your file, they're going to be asking you for a review, because that's part of their incentive. They get a bonus based on all this stuff every month. So you got a whole team of people at your disposal. Imagine that, doing all the work for you, or you can go and do it all yourself. Follow up on multiple applications, cross your fingers, throw some stuff at the wall, see what sticks. Oh, I got 10,000, not bad. That's not how it works with us. When you come through the door with us, we review your credit, we give you a plan of action, and we give you a pre-qualification amount that we are confident we can get for you. And then we go to bat, we do all the work for you, and really just take the stress off your shoulders with it. So a lot of people want to do that. A lot of people want that white glove treatment. They want, a lot of business owners are like that. That's how I am too. I don't want to have to go do all the work myself. I would way rather just pay someone to do it. Just like when I'm rehabbing a house, I'm not painting the walls and putting the flooring down. So it just depends on the person. A lot of people are like, well, I have good credit. What do I need you for? Well, guess what? I have a lot of clients with good credit. When they do it on their own, they don't get anything. They come to us, we apply, and then we initially don't get much, because that's just the way it works. It's not until we do the negotiations process, follow up multiple times, and we make sure that our client gets approved at the maximum amount possible. So why do we have 200 plus clients signing up with us every month? Why are we doing the numbers we're doing? 15 million in credit originated, we're 2,000 positive reviews. That's why, because everyone thinks like that. I don't want to do it myself. Let me just have the pros do it. So.
Right. Completely agree. And thank you for sharing that last thought. I think it makes a lot of sense. Why would you invest time when you can use that extra time and continue to grow and expand and leave the experts to take care of everything? So thank you so much for your time, Mike. And while I have everybody here, Mike and I have negotiated a discount, like he's mentioned all throughout the interview. And make sure you actually check the link right here, right? And if you can't check it out right here, it's also down in the description box below. Make sure you check it out, you fill it up at no cost. It doesn't cost you to fill it up. It doesn't cost you to get on the phone with Fund and Grow. It's a consultation call. They want to understand your current situation, your assessment, and then they'll take it from there. If you see value, which it's hard for me to believe that you wouldn't see value after this interview, and then you decide to join, make sure you bring up this episode and you refer back to the form that you filled up, and that way you can get the discounted price and start getting lots and lots of funding. So thank you so much for tuning in today. Thank you, Mike, for joining us, and that's it. So unless you have anything else to say, if not, then that will be the end of this episode.
Yeah, make sure you go through the link in the description. Don't go directly to our website, because you will not get the huge discount that Lucilia has negotiated for you guys. So go to the link, get your discount. At the very least, get on the phone with one of our team members, get a nice plan of action so you know where you're at with your credit, what you qualify for, and then you can make your decisions from there.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. And until then, I'll see everybody on the next time. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.